Cenk.
You're
This is what Biden did to Israel. You're slaughtering Palestinian children. He made it rain.
You're obsessed with Israel, but what about?
I'm not obsessed with Israel.
What about the lobbying done by China? What about the lobbying done by Japan?
Eating all the money from the Israeli lobby?
By Pakistan? What about the lobbying done by the Saudis,
okay,
the Qataris?
Here we go. Always the whataboutism.
All of these countries.
We get to commit a genocide because Pakistan also killed some people.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So as you can see from that intro, it's going to get quite spicy in this thing. We're going to get into Israel, Hamas, and all that good stuff, but we're going to get into Trump and everything that's going on with Doge. We're going to get into all kinds of stuff. And as you can see, Cenk Uygur, as a matter of fact, he's back and he's deranged as ever. We've got a Piers Morgan debate coming in for you guys, and I'm sure you're going to love it, so stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, y'all do me a big giant favor and smash that like button for me. I would really appreciate that. If y'all could do that for me, that would really help the channel out. And if you're new around here, subscribe to this channel. I also cover politics. I also break down these news stories from the corporate press outlets and explain to you exactly how you're being manipulated, the lies of the corporate press, and how they're manipulating you into leading you down a path of destruction. So y'all check out my regular videos, because I do these just for fun, because I enjoy inserting myself into the debate, if you will, and making these arguments back and forth. And y'all leave a comment down below and let me know exactly how wrong I am, and just exactly how extreme right-wing I am, because I know you guys love to tell me that I'm wrong. So y'all go ahead, leave your comments down below, share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, and join a membership to the channel if you'd like. Man, I would really appreciate that. So I've now got the ability for memberships to the channel, so if y'all would like to help me out tremendously, that would be the best thing you could ever do for me. I got a birthday coming up, so hey, there you go, early birthday gift, right? But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the debate. Let's go, y'all.
Later. But I do see, like the tariffs. He's always been on about tariffs, Trump.
Tariffs is his favourite word.
I've known Trump 20 years. He's always had a bee in his bonnet about tariffs and about other countries ripping America off. And so he's saying, right, if you're going to do this to us, we're going to whack you. And they're all blinking, by the way, these countries.
Yeah, I mean, I just would like to talk about tariffs, because I think that's really important. As we're talking, a lot of what's happening in the stock exchange is because of his tariffs. Now, why this is really important is because he managed to appeal to working people in America, the forgotten, the Rust Belt, the flyover state people, whose industries were gutted. I think we might have some agreement on this. These were left behind Americans. And they were left behind by globalism, by free trade across the world. They were the ones who suffered.
Indisputably.
Now, his ideas with tariffs, whether or not he can pull them off, none of us can know whether or not it will. But the idea is to bring back, to onshore those industries, encourage manufacturing. I would note Elon Musk has said he's going to double Tesla productions, increase manufacturing in America. This is done specifically for the working people of America. It's a reason why the unions, or at least uneducated unions...
He's a working class hero, Cenk.
No, nonsense. So look, here's the thing. Is he running as a populist? Yes, he ran as a populist. Yes, he talked about bringing jobs back, manufacturing back, etc. But what's he actually going to do? A $4.5 trillion tax cut for the richest people in the world, for corporate executives. The reason why they're doing all these Doge cuts in a panicked, chaotic way is so they can say, oh, no, it's okay. The Doge cuts will cover the $4.5 trillion. Oh, it's okay. The gold card and the tariffs will cover the $4.5 trillion. When that's utter nonsense. You know it's not going to cover the $4.5 trillion. It's a giant giveaway. Look, he's a bit of a Trojan horse for corporate rule. So he rolls in as a populist, he opens up the hatch, and then next thing you know, Elon Musk and all the tech bros come out of the horse and go, give us giant tax cuts. Give us deregulation. Fire everyone at the SEC. Fire all the inspector generals. Why? Because we're going to rob the place blind. And then we'll give me a crypto reserve filled with junk that makes no sense at all. So trillions of dollars in robbery headed in our direction. And who's it going to help? The average American? No, it's going to rob the average American to help corporate executives. So let's be honest about what's happening.
Okay, let's say that's the worst faith interpretation of what's going on. Let me paint the best faith interpretation. It's a three-pronged attack. One, you clear out, and this is what's happening with Doge, you clear out federal waste, you clear out government waste, which they're doing. Musk says he wants to get $2 trillion out. I don't think that's feasible. Maybe he'll get $1 trillion. He says he can get $1 trillion
don't you
this
get
year.
tired
But
of
hang on a
these
sec.
lies, though?
Hang on a sec.
Because you know he's
hang on
not
a
gonna
sec,
do
hang on a
$2
sec.
trillion.
Hang on a sec. So then the other aspect, the other foot of the stool, the tripod, is tariffs. He's hoping to onshore manufacturing, bring back that to America. And the final piece is reducing income. Now, so income tax, excuse me. The reason he wants to reduce income tax might be, as you say, or it might be, but by having all working people have more of their own money, keep more of their own money, they'll be able to spend it on things they want that will encourage the economy.
No, that's always what they say. Supply side economics, my ass. Come on, this is the biggest trick on not only just American people, but people all across the world. That's why they call it the laugher curve, because they laugh their ass off at the average guy who believes it. So the idea is trickle down economics. We give all of the money to the rich, trillions and trillions and trillions. Later, they trickle all over you, and you'll have to thank them for it. No. So I guarantee you the $4.5 trillion is a robbery. That's robbery number one. I'm worried about robbery number two, which is crypto. So I don't know why we have a crypto reserve. The crypto guys told me that they didn't like the government. They wanted the government stinking hands off their crypto. All of a sudden, Trump said, they're like, no, buy my crypto, make the American taxpayers buy my crypto. No, I don't want your crap. You like your crap, you keep your crap, okay? But I don't need average Joe in Nebraska and Jane in Kansas buying your crypto for you, okay, in a reserve. So this is all a giant robbery. But the problem is, by the time people find out whether I'm right, you're right, Piers, or you're right, Winston, it's going to be too late. The money's already going to be gone.
You don't dispute that after 3 years of his first term, the U.S. economy.
All right, so that's a whole lot to break down, right? So let's go in on the tariffs right quick. And you know, Cenk Uygur's disingenuous argument that, oh, this is just a ploy by Elon Musk and the tech bros to come in and rob the place blind. Like, are you serious here? Like, that's so disingenuous. Like, what are they robbing? Like, seriously, what exactly are they going to rob? Because currently the government is funded in a deficit. We don't have any money to give the tech bros, as a matter of fact. They are helping to alleviate some of that deficit currently. That is what Elon Musk is doing, but the tariffs. Okay, so, they're like he was saying, and he didn't get to finish this, you know, the corporate press, I can't stand their arguments on these tariffs, because these tariffs do many, many different things. Once again, like he was saying, it tries to bring back manufacturing. That's the blanket tariffs. Now, these targeted tariffs on like Canada and Mexico and all this, that's a negotiating tactic. He doesn't plan to keep those in place. Right now, maybe if he's tariffing China through Mexico on their Chinese cars, yeah, that is a bid to get back manufacturing, the automobile manufacturing back into this country, because we need to reignite. That was one of the bread and butters, right? This country has been utterly decimated by free trade. And I think Donald Trump sees that, and implementing all these tariffs is a shock to the freaking system, right? All this garbage going on with Canada, these tariff wars, if you want to call it a trade war back and forth, that is a negotiating tactic with Canada. Now, maybe not the aluminum and steel. That is, once again, that is to bring back the manufacturing of aluminum and steel back into America, to reinvigorate the Rust Belt, or at least attempt to, right? Donald Trump understands completely that these tariffs in the immediate is going to put a hurting on certain products, right? It's not blanketly all the way across the board like the mainstream news and people like Cenk Uygur trying to tell you. Now, he also says that trickle-down economics doesn't work. Trickle-down economics, I'm sorry for anybody, it's always in effect, right? But I just don't get this idea of their idea of you tax the corporations through the nose, right? This is what happened in the 50s and 60s. And what happened? You know, we had high taxes on these corporations, and then we opened up free trade. What did that do? That decimated our industrial base. By God, we were the mecca for the Industrial Revolution, for crying out loud. The United States invented industrialization, essentially. We revolutionized the Industrial Revolution, if you will. Like, we made it widespread. We allowed for these other countries to take our model and run with it. And that brought the world out of poverty, brought a lot of people out of poverty by giving good manufacturing jobs, right? And Donald Trump sees this, right? We don't know if the plan is going to work. Although we can say, looking back at 2019, the economy in 2019, with tariffs and all that other nonsense that they said was going to destroy the economy. It didn't, as a matter of fact. Now, once again, I don't know if this 4-year period of Donald Trump is going to be able to reinvigorate the economy that much. Although I will say he did a pretty good job in 3 years in his first term. So we'll see how that all plays out. But, this just disingenuous, like, Donald Trump's allowing the tech pros to rob the U.S. government blind is nonsense. It is utter and blatant nonsense from these people. Let's keep going, y'all.
But for the 3 years, as I've said to him, for the 3 years up until that point, actually the US economy was in good shape. And that's why I think a lot of Americans went, you know what? I sort of back Trump on the economy. I may not even like him, but I kind of think he knows what he's doing on the economy. When you say he doesn't know what he's doing, I do dispute that. He's got some incredibly smart guys there around him. Yeah. I see them all the time, but these are smart
Piers,
people.
I get what you're saying. And, look, I'm fair about the facts. So those 3 years were pretty good. So now you could say, hey, Cenk, that proves the case. But it doesn't prove the case.
Well, it might prove he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So what I'm saying is, look, that time there was an establishment that was in the White House. And they frustrated him in a lot of ways. Half the time they were wrong, half the time they were right. But they were the brakes in the car. This is a car without any brakes. So we're now in a Tesla with no brakes at all, almost a driverless car, and it's careening out of control because there's nobody to go, hey, brother, if you do 50% tariffs on Canada, the stock market's going to drop by 1,000 points. Everybody knows that.
But everyone knows this is all negotiation going on, these tariffs, right? He is negotiating from a very strong position. But he's the president of the United States. But he's the biggest dog. He's the biggest dog in the race.
But when I say 50 and then you say 25 within the same day once the stock market crashes, you look weak.
Do you?
Yeah, of course you do.
It depends what the other side do.
It makes everybody think, oh, he's bluffing. He's bluffing. We just wait him out.
A lot of the time he is bluffing.
He is often bluffing.
Right.
But the problem is, have you ever played poker? When you're playing against a bluffer, you love it.
I've met New York real estate tycoons, and guess what? The art of the bluff is a real thing.
It is, but it's an art. If you bluff on every hand, you're going to get called and you're going to lose all your money. Every poker player knows that.
He doesn't bluff all the time.
He does nothing but bluffing.
He negotiates all the time.
Yeah, he does. He does. Look, I don't mind the negotiation. And look, we've got a pendulum swinging.
Because I feel with you, Cenk, you've gone on a bit of a journey with Trump. I think you're far less, if I may say so, without offending you, hysterical about Trump than you were before. I do think you've calmed down about it because I think you do understand, as I've known him a long time, always focus on what Trump actually does rather than what he says in any given moment, which may sound preposterous given he's the President of the United States. But look how much he talks, not least to the media. He's already done more talking, freewheeling chats with the media in America in his first 5-6 weeks than Obama and Biden did in their first 6 months, right? This is a guy who just chats away. He says the first thing that comes into his head a lot of the time. It's not presidential by the normal yardstick. But I think a lot of people find it quite refreshing.
So, Piers, the pendulum is swinging. So Biden and the Democrats did absolutely nothing. And they always brag about how they do nothing. Oh, there's nothing we can do, right? Now, Trump is taking nonstop chaotic action. Nonstop. It's a cyclone of action, right? So the country wants it, but they don't want it as chaotic as he's got.
The country's a bit like the stock markets. They're a bit freaked out by it. They don't quite know what to make of it. Stock markets are a bunch of headless chickens, right? We know this.
Yeah.
Right? Good and bad, right? They can fly up and down on a heartbeat of what they call
But we
confidence.
do know some things, Piers. We know that if you do a 50% tariff on Canada, the stock market's going to
If you genuinely think it's going to still be 50% in 6 months' time.
Yeah,
I doubt it'll be there in 6 days.
So you're asking the stock market to stop believing what Trump is saying. He's obviously lying all the time.
I'm asking the stock market to basically remember that it's better to focus on longer term with Trump than in the short moment.
One more thing, Piers, but we've now had 50 days. So you're right, I'm much more open-minded, and the left is attacking me for being open-minded. And I said, I'll hear Trump out, I'll hear Musk out. Are they really going to cut the Pentagon? But now the jury is coming in. Now they're saying, no, we're not going to cut the Pentagon. We were lying about that. We're going to add $100 billion to the Pentagon. Are we still doing the $4.5 trillion tax cut to corporate executives? Yes, we are. Are we now starting to arrest people for, criticizing Israel? Yes, we are.
Well, let's come to that.
I just love how Cenk doesn't realize his own intellectual hypocrisy on this. At the beginning of that clip, he started talking about essentially equating the establishment to the breaks to Donald Trump. Like, hang on a second. You're one of the most staunch anti-establishment left-wing populists out there, right? This is your whole shtick. It's left-wing populism, anti-establishment. Now you're saying the establishment is a good thing because Donald Trump's in office? And once again, he's talking about, oh, it's nothing but chaos with Donald Trump. Well, I don't think it is chaos. I don't believe it's chaos whatsoever. I think the corporate press is drumming up chaos. I think that's what's going on with this. I don't think none of this is chaos. It all makes logical sense to me, everything that's going on. We've had the establishment in charge of our government forever. And to get that establishment out, we need vast change, pendulum swing, boom to the other side. But so that would be essentially tantamount to anti-chaos in the other direction, if you want to go that route. That was anti-chaos, right? Business as usual. But we don't like business as usual over here on the anti-establishment side. So regardless if you like Trump's actions or not, you don't like it. You don't like the establishment, you're going to like what's going on, or at least what's going to be coming down the pipeline, given that we're destroying the establishment. Now I understand, Cenk Uygur's a Democrat, so because it's Republican populism going on here, and he doesn't believe it's real populism, although, I'm a populist, I think. I'm conservative, and I love what's going on with Doge, with Donald Trump, with these tariffs, getting America first, putting us back into the spotlight, focusing more on the United States economy than focusing on all these other nations and sending all this money out to fund all these far left ideologically driven programs. I think that's a bunch of nonsense, but blatant hypocrisy coming here from Cenk Uygur. Because, all this is focused to reinvigorate the economy, right? Cenk Uygur just doesn't agree on how to get there, but how to get there doesn't matter if the end result is we invigorate our economy and make America great again, right? We make the American worker great again, and that's what we need to do, is build out the middle class, right? We need to expand the middle class. We need to make that better. Well, how do we do that? Manufacturing jobs is the way to do it, and that's what these tariffs are going to do. And that's why I'm loving this, cutting the waste, the fraud, the abuse from the federal government. I love what Elon Musk is doing, cutting these federal employees out. We need to make the federal government smaller. I don't understand this idea of expanding the federal government. Why do we need such a big, large federal government, right? I think states should have more individual power than the federal government does as far as control of their own state. In other words, why is the federal government so expansive when it doesn't really need to be? We don't need 2 million employees for the federal government. I understand certain departments, right? I understand, having a big military. I do believe in having a strong military because that is our protection insurance, essentially. That's what protects us from the dangers of the outside world, right? But why do we need 100 or 90, I think it's 90,000 IRS agents? Why do we need 15,000 USAID employees? Why do we need, 60,000 DH? Blah, 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 blah. We could just go on. I understand having, customs and border protection. That's another thing that's protecting our borders, essentially. That goes along with the military. But, I just don't understand why some of these other departments, like the Department of Agriculture, why does the Department of Education even exist, right? Hopefully Donald Trump is successful in getting rid of all this. And I've been following a lot of this, right? Through the court system, all these lawsuits, it's all getting turned over, y'all. This is all going to hit the Supreme Court, and a lot of this is going to go through. But let's keep going because I don't want to get too far off topic.
For Winston, one, the general point about free speech, the Republicans have been extremely hot on free speech, people's rights, especially Elon Musk, right? He's returned X, as he put it, to a platform that allows all opinion to be had. He has somebody who's expressing opinions that he may not like, and Donald Trump may not like, and the government may not like, but their first reaction, it seems to many people, is to then chuck them out of the country and suppress their right to free speech in America. That's an arguable point. But on the second point, which is an interesting one about the IRA, there's no doubt. I'm an Irish Catholic. I can remember people on the streets of New York on St. Patrick's Day and other days, right? I can remember people openly supporting the IRA during those troubles. and they were a prescribed terror group. What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that this is not a free speech issue necessarily. So, for example, as I've already quoted, what it is that is Mahmoud Khalil is being deported on is that he broke the rules that he agreed to when he came to America. He can continue saying what he wants. In fact, he could have said all that he said. Or rather, no, he can't. He can't express support for Hamas. He could have expressed support for Palestine. He could even have been anti-Semitic, and it wouldn't have broken the rules. But specifically, he supported terrorist activity and terrorist organization, and that broke the rules which he agreed to when he came to America.
This is all nonsense.
But
This is all nonsense.
That's completely correct.
Because they never investigated any Irish people on student visas. Any Irish people who are on green cards. They never look. The PKK is a Kurdish terrorist organization. Did they investigate anybody who supports them? No. The only people that are investigated are people who criticize Israel.
Not true.
Who are we kidding? No. I want you to answer the question.
Yeah.
Be honest and be serious.
No.
Do you think that any other country or any other movement is investigated other than if you dare to criticize our special ally Israel because they buy all our politicians? That's so obvious. That's the most obvious thing in the world. Anyone who doesn't acknowledge that, including every single mainstream media reporter in America, is an enormous liar. It is the money talking, saying, how dare you arrest anyone who dares to criticize Israel. Admit that that's true.
2023,
if you don't admit that's true, then there's no point in this conversation.
In 2023, the Biden administration forbid Israelis from coming into America.
Oh, yeah, Biden's so tough on Israel. That's why you can bring check. This is what Biden did to Israel. You're slaughtering Palestinian children. He made it rain.
You're obsessed with Israel, but what about...
I'm not obsessed with Israel.
What about the lobbying done by China? What about the lobbying done by Japan?
Eating all the money from the Israeli lobby.
Done by Pakistan? What about the lobbying done by the Saudis, the Qataris,
the always the whataboutism.
All of these countries...
we get to commit a genocide because Pakistan also killed some people.
Unbelievable.
Okay, look, America and everyone else in the world. Now you're clear. I believe that Israel has disproportionate power in America because their lobby, for example, has given $337 million to Trump.
Doesn't compare to what the China lobby have given to America. Doesn't compare to...
Give a more direct example.
Hang on.
Let me just make this last point in regards to this.
Last point by Cenk, then Nadine.
So this is the epitome of cancel culture.
Sorry, just like
wait one second, Nadine. I'll bring you in after Cenk. Nadine, wait one second. Cenk first.
So this is the epitome of cancel culture, but we're canceling people on behalf of a foreign government. Musk and Trump said that they were free speech absolutists, but now they say no. There's one exception, and there was always one exception. You'll get no Epstein files. You'll get no freedom of speech. We'll do nothing but cancel culture, but always on behalf of beloved special ally Israel that has stuffed all of our pockets with millions of dollars.
On a technical point, Cenk, is Winston not correct that if you're not a naturalized citizen of the United States, I happen to know this, I'm an exceptional alien in your country. That's what it says on my visa. I don't complain about the wording. It is a bit weird. You call us exceptional aliens. But if I'm going to be an alien, I may as well be exceptional. But
okay, so this is where Israel derangement syndrome comes into play. Cenk Uygur, as a matter of fact, has Israel derangement syndrome. Everything they see, it's Israel's fault. It's Israel's. It's a terrorist organization. Well, I can answer that original question quite easily, quite simply, right off the jump. Okay, so back in the what would that be? The 80s? Yeah, there were not any immigrants going around terrorizing British students in this country. There were not any visa holders here, student visa or whatever it may be. There were none of those here advocating on behalf of the IRA or any of that were going around to college campuses, starting up protests and terrorizing British students on campus, which was exactly what these people were doing. There was college protests all over the place. People were getting violent, right? It was turning violent. They were terrorizing students here in the United States on these college campuses, specifically Jewish students who were getting scared. And hey, look, I understand. Israel is doing its thing, and we're going to get into that debate. And I kind of fall in the middle on that because, Israel's doing some bad stuff. But, once again, Hamas is a terrorist organization that that absolutely needs to be eliminated. But, one good slap in the face doesn't deserve another good slap in the face. But it all boils down to scruples, right? It all boils down to politicians with a backbone, an enforcement mechanism, if you will, right? Are our leaders willing to actually enforce the rules on the books, right? Now, you could say that, oh yeah, all this influence by AIPAC and Israel and all this other stuff would influence Donald Trump to actually enforce this. You can make that argument, sure, go ahead, whatever. But we're not breaking any laws here, are we? Right? We're not. They're enforcing the law, as a matter of fact, and it is illegal as a alien to come into this country on a visa. You're here legally, good, fine, whatever. You're here as a student, you're here as whatever, but you cannot support a terrorist organization and get away with it, right? Now, it's the enforcement mechanism. They just so happen to be terrorizing Jewish students. Yeah, we can't allow for that. That wasn't taking place back in the 80s, so shut your mouth, Cenk Uygur. You don't know what you're talking about here. You have Israel derangement syndrome, as a matter of fact, and you cannot see any good that comes from Israel. Everything is bad, right? You claim to be not anti-Semitic, but, there is a vast difference between being, anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. There is a big difference in that, and I can see that, Cenk Uygur isn't necessarily anti-Semitic blatantly, right? He is anti-Israel, though. Very anti-Israel, but that doesn't necessarily make him anti-Semitic, but he does have some anti-Semitic sentiments, if you will, right? Because there is a little bit of crossover right there, because, it is a Jewish state, for crying out loud, but, that you don't let your Israeli derangement syndrome bleed over into everything else, my guy, right? You can't go around just blaming Israel for everything and not being able to see your own hypocrisies going on here. It's the enforcement mechanism that is what is going on with this. Yes, why would you advocate for somebody? It's not a free speech issue like he was saying. It's absolutely not. If they are deporting this guy based upon the fact that he is supporting Hamas, I don't see a problem with that. You don't get the same rights as everybody else as an alien in this country, right? Whether you're here legally or illegally, doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, if you're here legally, you get a lot more rights than somebody here that's, a criminal alien would get. Actually, but, once again, it's about the enforcement mechanism on this. It is about people actually willing to stand up and enforce these laws just because of the circumstances, right? That's the only difference here. The circumstances in the background. There was actual terrorism going on college campuses. Jewish students were terrorized, as a matter of fact. That we all saw that play out on TV. Whatever side you take, it doesn't matter. That's what happened. Can't really argue against that. Let's keep going.
Yeah, wait a second. Final word to you here. And I would just ask you a difficult question, I guess, which is, there are many people who are absolutely of the view that Israel should continue until the last Hamas terrorist is gone. Many in Israel feel that. They're not as keen on Netanyahu, for example, but they're absolutely keen on the mission to get rid of Hamas, and the trauma that Israel suffered that day cannot be underestimated. However, if you look at the conflict in totality, it is hard to argue, particularly in light of events this week, where Israel has just casually turned off the power into Gaza, which made me ask some questions on X. Well, hang on, who gives them the right to have that right to turn the power on and off into Gaza? And it turns out that they control more than 50% of all the electricity that Gaza has, and turned off 90% of that almost immediately after October the 7th. So you've got these, look, there are guilty Hamas terrorists there. There are also many, many hundreds of thousands of perfectly innocent, particularly children, living there, who have had almost no power now, are now getting no fuel coming in. There have been limitations on water. The power that was coming in was being used to provide clean water. That's now been withdrawn. None of this strikes me as being a reasonable thing for Israel to be doing now. Does it you?
Okay, so I think to understand the electricity thing, there's a bit of background needs to be understood. Firstly, why is it that Gaza doesn't have more power plants? One of the reasons is that they have spent
Because Israel bought
many
them.
billions of their donations building up a vast terror
That is
network.
true.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
their
No, it's
own
because
military.
Israel bombed
Another
them.
Well, that is
question:
true.
which
Let him
why is
speak,
it?
let
Why
him
is it that
speak.
Egypt aren't supplying electricity to Gaza? The reason is even Egypt themselves recognize Hamas as a Muslim Brotherhood affiliated organization, and they are incredibly wary of that organization. Then, as well as understanding that, you've got to understand the
Egypt doesn't
ceasefire
occupy
negotiations that have
Palestine,
broken
Israel
down.
does.
So
But
there's a
Winston,
three-phase
do
ceasefire.
you accept any criticism of what Israel is doing now?
I think that they are back in conflict because ceasefire has failed. Both sides. Now, look, if you go into why the ceasefire has failed,
Israel.
well, there's arguments on both sides. Israel obviously only got 22 of the promised 33 hostages. Hamas said they would clear the Philadelphia passage.
Israel
they did
won't
not.
withdraw 'cause they're gonna take Gaza.
Israel's definitely,
Will you all
definitely have
apologize
grievances.
when they try to take Gaza?
May I? Israel have grievances about the phase 1 of the ceasefire failing, so they've been unable to get to phase 2 of the ceasefire.
Should they
Phase
say,
unable to.
hang on,
because
Winston, should they be turning off the power into Gaza?
Now that the ceasefire has failed, the conflict is been.
No, but
taken up
should
again.
they?
They're starving them to death.
Blockades
Answer the question.
are
Do you want them starved to
blockades
death?
are a normal part of war. We
So
British
starvation is a
blockaded
normal
Nazi
part of war.
Germany.
Blockades
No,
been
it's a
happening
war
since
crime.
before
I'm glad
October
you brought
7th.
up Nazi Germany. That's exactly what the Germans would have done. Cut off their food,
British
cut off,
did it to
and then
Germans.
incinerate their kids. Because that's what they did. They put them in and incinerated
Turning off
the Jews
electricity
during
is
the
not
Holocaust.
incineration.
It was heartbreaking. Jews have
Please.
suffered so
Gaza
much
was
throughout
under
history.
blockade for
Now,
over 20
Israel
years
turns
before
around, pretends to be the
October
Jewish state, and says, I speak for all Jews. No, you don't. You don't speak for my Jewish friends. You don't speak for my Jewish family. And you've actually greatly tainted them. And I despise Israel for that. Now Israel says, we get to starve children to death. We get to burn them to death. We get to crush their skulls. No, you have become what you most despised. So please stop. I know that there's nothing we could do because you bought every single politician in America, but I'm asking you to have morality and remember your Jewish faith, which is a wonderful faith that is giving and generous and talks in Passover about even having mercy for the people who kept you as slaves. Can you not have mercy for the people that you are keeping as slaves?
Okay.
How long are you going to occupy them?
Okay.
Answer that question. How long are you going to occupy them? You're brutalizing them. 58 years. You've kept them in a dark dungeon. And anytime they dare to oppose
has
you,
done that, Dr.
you cut off their water, you
Hamas
cut off,
has done
and
this.
you kill their children.
It is Hamas who've
Israel,
done that.
you should be better than
They've
this.
done this
but you know,
way before Hamas
okay,
ever
listen.
existed.
Also, I would say,
Israel
Cenk,
occupied-
Okay, this is where we get into the deep ish, if you will. Now, the extraordinary short sightedness of Hamas, right? This is what it all boils down to. Of the extraordinarily short sightedness of voting Hamas as your government, for crying out loud. Like, what sense does that make to vote in a terrorist organization and to lead your government, to run your government? This is what this boils down to, right? You can't blame Israel for cutting off the electricity when you have had the ability in the past, instead of building bombs and rockets to lob into Israel, you could have been building power plants, building up infrastructure, doing what you were supposed to be doing with that money. That is extraordinarily ridiculously stupid, if you ask me, for these people to do, all because you feel you're being oppressed. Well, you know what? In my opinion, and I know I'm going to get a lot of people in the comments section saying, oh, you're wrong. Well, you're only oppressed if you allow yourself to be oppressed. I don't allow anybody to oppress me, right? You should not allow for this to take place. If you think you're being put in a dungeon for 58 years, turn that dungeon into a castle, for crying out loud. You don't take what's given to you and then cry about it, right? And then turn that into a weapon and then cry when you get your electricity shut off. I'm sorry, right? Israel is not an angel in this. I've got my criticisms for Israel. But, this is a self-inflicted wound upon the Palestinians for actually allowing the ideology of Hamas to take root and fester as it has. These people have brought this on themselves for the most part. Cenk Uygur, he gets all deranged with these people, blames everything on Israel, right? Well, you know what? I love how they blamed, why don't they have power plants in Palestine or Gaza or whatever you want to call it, right? Oh, it's because Israel dropped bombs on them. No. That's just another form of Israel derangement syndrome that can't allow you to see the forest for all the trees that are in the way, right? Well, these people have not done anything with the resources that was given to them except terrorism. Israel was not dropping bombs on them before October 7th, right? There was a period of peace. They could have been building up their infrastructure, doing whatever the hell they needed to do with whatever they had, right? But instead, they chose violence. They chose terrorism. And they're getting bombed into oblivion. I don't like that at all. I'm not going to lie, right? I'm not all on the side of Israel on this. Don't take that in the wrong way. I have my criticisms for both, right? Israel should definitely, if they have the ability to go in with surgical precision and eliminate, to root out Hamas. Will it take longer? Will it be more costly? Yes and yes. Yes, it will, as a matter of fact. But do they have the ability to do so? I do believe that. They have a top-notch military. And I don't think, we would have much of a problem if they asked for assistance from the United States to get, a couple of commando units, whatever you might need, right? Special forces to go in and eliminate just Hamas, right? No civilians. I understand that's a tall ask, but is it possible? Yes. As a matter of fact, it is. When you have a people like the Palestinians who have been ruled over by a terrorist organization, you cannot, even though Hamas puts them into the line of fire, I totally understand that. They use the Palestinian people as human shields. Once again, we have the ability to surgically strike. Even as they're using the Palestinian people as human shields, we have that ability to go around that shield and eliminate the target. They have that ability. Once again, like I'm saying, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. But if Israel wants to eliminate the criticisms away from it, if they want to be just in what they're doing by eliminating Hamas, because, in my opinion, death is never justification. I'm sorry. I don't condone, I don't even condone the death penalty, for crying out loud, because I don't feel that the government has the right to impose that sort of penalty on another human being. I'm of the opinion that the only person that is justified in dulling out the death penalty is the person that was killed, right? And they can't do that, as a matter of fact, because they're already dead, for goodness sakes. So there you go. That's how I feel about that, because, if there's any innocence to that person, right? I just don't trust the government enough to tell me that this person is guilty if we don't have 100% absolute proof. If there's 100% absolute proof, if the guy is on video doing it and we can see it clearly, plus he admits to doing it, says, yes, I did, has no problems with that, then, hey, that's fine, sure, fine, whatever. I'd be okay with that. But in most cases, we don't have that much proof, right? And especially in a situation like this, these are innocent people that are getting brutalized. And we're supposed to just play along with this, right? I could care less what Hamas has done at this point. They've done the bad stuff. They deserve to be eliminated, in my opinion. You buy into that. But it's really, when it all boils down to it, it's the ideology that needs to be rooted out. It's not necessarily the group itself. Because if we can rehabilitate those people to move away from violence, that's what we need to do. Root out the ideology from the person itself. But, that once again, that's an even harder ask of somebody to do, because I don't even know if that's even possible, but I imagine it is. In the world that we live in, I'm sure there's some way we can work out to where these people can live together in, semi-harmony, if you will. Like, it ain't got to be complete harmony. We ain't got to be all singing Kumbaya over here, right? But if we can get to a point to where we'll leave each other alone, see, that's what I think. If the Israelis right? If the Israeli government would take the first step here, back off. Stop with the expansionism. Just back off the Palestinians. Let them do their thing. Just leave them alone. Build you a wall. Reinforce your Iron Dome. And leave everything alone. Let it fester for a while. Give them control of their own government. Let them be. See what happens. And document all of this. Document everything. And then if these people still choose violence, then hey, then you have your justification again. Go in. But, that will never stop. This will be a continual cycle as long as that ideology exists. Right? I just don't understand how people can advocate for this. These people voted in Hamas, right? I could go back and forth like this all day long because, when it all boils down to it, it's Hamas that is the problem here, right? It's causing a lot of criticism for Israel, who are not angels, by the way. We have our criticisms of Israel. I don't care how much money they give to Donald Trump. I don't care how much influence they have with AIPAC in Congress. I don't care about any of that, right? I am a Christian, for crying out loud. To me, that is the Holy Land, right? I don't mind Israel having control over that land, even though they don't agree with Christianity. I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. I think that area needs to be peaceful, though. I don't think an ideology like Hamas even needs to exist. It's ridiculous that it does. I don't understand why these people can't let bygones be bygones on both sides. But, I understand it's not that easy. It's not that easy. But, there is a path to this. There's got to be a path to this. There is a peaceful resolution to any problem that we have. We just need to have cooler heads prevail, come to the table, work this thing out, figure out whether it's a one-state solution, a two-state solution, something, moving all these people away from that area. I know they don't want to do that, but that might be the best solution. I just don't know, right? Just don't know. Might be, it might not. You never know at this point. But, we need to come to some sort of agreement here because peace in the Middle East is a pretty far away dream at this point. And I don't know if we're ever going to get there. But once again, I'm rambling at this point. But I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section because I imagine you guys have your opinions. So y'all let me know exactly how wrong or how right I am. And that's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. And stay legitical. Peace.